tell you, she said, I looked at the complaint, and she said, I automatically closed the case. Because when we get an anonymous tip, especially from a phone number that's not in the state, we don't put much credence to it. Because, we're aware. She said, in fact, I closed a case a couple weeks ago, the same thing. Somebody called in a fake report on somebody. She said, so, I just want you to know that, we didn't take this, as a credible report. We don't do that. She said, and it's funny, she said, because I was thinking, that I was going to contact you, She said, but, we don't take these seriously, So I started laughing. I said, I figured. I said, that's why I wanted to call you guys ahead of time, because I'm sure that sooner or later it was going to happen to me, because he's been doing this for a long time. So I said to her, well, I said, can you tell me? I said, because, not only does he have this behavior, but there are a handful of people that have been supporting him. I said, and mind you, this is a guy that has a federal warrant out of Florida. He's not too keen on the fact that there are people that want him apprehended, arrested, and, in prison for a long time. I said, but can you tell me, was it a male or a female voice? I said, because he doesn't have many men that follow him, because, for whatever reason, but, there are a handful of women, and, I can probably give you the names of the 2 or 3 people that would do that. So she went back, she said, no, it was a man's voice. And I'm like, oh. Mike, in the game of chess, you can't win. You can't win, Mike. You can't win. So, she put in a complaint. I gave her my family's information, so if anybody calls and tries to make anonymous bullshit tips, it's going to go right in the garbage, because, as I said, I know some of these officers already from dealing with them. And more importantly, I know the chief of police. Now, and does the chief and I hang out? No. Yes, Miss Sunshine, he called my police department. But as I said, as I was saying earlier, Miss Sunshine, I called them this morning to let them know that somebody at some point would probably call, not realizing or knowing that he called already this morning. And there was absolutely no problem with that, because, as I said, my son and the chief's son have been on sports teams for a long time together. He knows us. He knows me and my wife. He knows my son. He tried filing a false report with them for them to contact DCF, but he failed. There's nothing to be sorry about at all. I knew he would do it at some point. And as I said, and for those people that came in, I'll do a quick rundown, and then I want to get started here. The information I'm gonna put out today, I've been holding off on it because it's really it's really something that I don't normally do. So Yesterday when I decided to do this, I said, well, I'm going to call my police ahead of time on the non-emergency number and let them know that there is this kook on TikTok and a couple of his followers that make it a habit of calling police departments with false claims. And then it wastes their time because then, they might have to go to the house and, whether it's a wellness check or a false DCF complaint. So, I posted today that I was going live, and I called the police department, and I called the non-emergency line, and I said, listen, I just want to let you know that there is somebody on TikTok that's been going around calling police departments, saying that, somebody needs a mental health check or, DCF needs to look into this person, this and that. So I called the police department and I told the person, about all this. And he said, well, I'm going to have an officer come by just so they can file, you can file a report for this. So, I got up, threw some clothes on, and I got a phone call from a police officer. And, I gave her all the information about Mike and all the things. And she said, it's funny that you say that because we actually got a phone call this morning. And, saying that, wanting to file a report for DCF. And she said to me that, I just wanted to let you know that, we do not take anonymous reports, especially when people aren't even in the state that they are reporting, because, we're aware that this is happening on social media. She had said that she had just closed a report down for another person that it happened to in my town, same circumstances. And, she said, I just want you to know that we didn't even do anything with it. We closed it down because there's no evidence of anything going on. So, it was just ironic because I knew what he was going to try to do. I knew it. I knew what he and whoever else were going to try to do. So, yet again, it's a fail. It's a fail. So, nice try, Mike. I think he was hoping that, because of, he thought that, I was going to be kind of bogged down today with police coming to my house and all that, that I wouldn't go online today. And no, didn't happen. Did not happen at all. Before we get into that, there's a couple things that I want to play quickly from things that happened last night. And I want to comment on it, and then we're going to get to the main thing today. So let me... Hey, Rubes. Let me find this video here. Hey, you cannot have my bread. Let me see if this is it.
Like tonight in MJ's live when I got up there, I just want people to understand that type of judgment that you're imparting when you're coming at people for saying like, oh, you sat with Florida man. You all do realize there's a group of people who are terrified to walk away from him because they feel that nobody's going to accept them if they do so. And I'm not talking about like hate bonding with them. I'm just saying, like, if they walk away from him, they have nobody, because you'll just throw it in their face that they were around Florida Man. Thank you, Mark. How do you think that looks to the people who want to walk away but are scared when you're sitting there going after people? Especially when you're sitting there going after the people who listen to them and understand why they're scared. It's almost like we create the issue. Everybody wants to know why people sit with Florida Man. Because of you.
Okay.
Your judgment and your negativity and your comments that, you know, people who sit with him are just trash anyways. Well, you think people are going to want to come and talk to you? You think people are going to want to stop associating with him? Because you don't look like you're too inviting of a person at that point. You don't seem like you're friendly. You don't open a door and make people feel that they can recognize their wrongs and be forgiven. That's why I spent 8 months trying to understand people a little bit more.
That's her excuse. That's her excuse for going back to Florida Man, according to her. That's her excuse. Oh, I went over there and I was trying to protect people. I was trying to understand, you know, what was going on and trying to, you know, make a safe place. Okay. Let's go on here.
Because at the end of the day, it's the people in the comments who want to act like people are terrible people and talk a bunch of shit on them while everybody's coming together for a collective cause. You want to know why half the people sit with Florida Man that still do? Because you're all a bitch.
This is Mallory.
And you make them feel like if they walk away, there's going to be nobody. And that everyone's going to hate them. Not to mention, a lot of you say the nastiest stuff about people who sit with Florida Man in general, to the point to where, how do they even feel they can approach you and talk to you? If you want people to walk away from Florida Man, don't you think they might be helpful for them to have some people who they feel safe around so that they feel like they can actually take...
Mallory, they feel safe with you though, right? I mean, can't these people that are afraid of Mike go to your lives and reach out to you? So either you're full of shit or people realize that you are a shit. Because nobody trusts you. You can spin what you did 24/7. And yes, I'm chewing. I apologize. You can spin it however you want. But what I and everybody else saw is this. You were being attacked by Florida Man. So you were a victim. And how do we know that? Because every opportunity you get, you sit there and say, well, where was everybody when Florida Man was going after me? Nobody stuck up for me, because you're not likable. I said that months ago. The real question is, Mallory, why didn't people who were your friends at the time when he was going after you, why didn't they stick up for you? That's the real question. But I heard her say it again last night in MJ's live. Where was everybody when he was going after me? Nobody cared about that, because we don't like you, Mallory. You're not likable. There are a lot of people that he's gone after that are very likable. And we know what you did. We all saw it. You went back to Florida Man. You sat in there in boxes when he went after people. And you talk about, oh, and some of the people say the most vile things about Florida Man supporters. You were in boxes with him when he was saying vile things about people. So you're not going to turn this around like you're like some Florence fucking Nightingale.
The steps to walk away, because you want people to not be around him. You want people to not sit with Florida Man. What do you expect them to do? Especially the ones that are scared. What do you expect them to do? Look at you and say, oh yeah, they talk a bunch of shit about me and how I'm a shitty person because I've been sitting over here, but little do they know I'm scared. So maybe if I just go and I dump all this stuff to... No, they don't trust you. They don't trust you. A lot of them were manipulated into believing he was a good person up until the point where he started to screw people over that they saw. So if they see you and they feel like you're going to screw them over from the beginning, you're just another Florida Man to them.
Huh.
It's like telling them leave an abusive situation to come to another abusive situation. Oh, we'll tell you what a piece of shit you are, but at least you'll be on our side.
No, it's already clean. It's already on.
Do y'all ever think about that?
This is rules.
I'm just wondering, did people genuinely think about how it might feel to the people who are actively wanting to walk away? They've been called pieces of shit. They've been told that they're terrible fucking people because they sat with him.
My daughter's right here. My daughter's right here.
Oh, nature lover, you're not a nobody. Everybody's somebody. Even, and that's like why I try not to say people are irrelevant. I might say you're irrelevant to me, but everybody's relevant to somebody in the world. Everybody matters to somebody in the world. Florida Man's always going to have people around him because at the end of the day, he's a human and there's always going to be people who want to be around him. But to all of the people who were sitting there saying, we all need to get along, we all need to do this, we need to bring Florida Man down. You can't bring somebody down if you're not willing to accept the fact that you make other people feel like pieces of shit. If you can't make the people who want to walk away from him feel accepted to the point to where they might recognize they've done something wrong, but there's people who will at least listen to them. Because I know why some of those people don't leave. And y'all are part of the problem.
No, Mallory, you're the problem. You're the problem because you know what? You went back to him. And he was in your boxes. And you were in his boxes. And I even think, if I'm not mistaken, you made a comment a few months ago. If I'm not, now I could be wrong. Somebody clear it up for me, please, in the comments. But didn't she make a comment one time about, you don't understand who he is. You don't understand what he's gone through. You know, he's a human and, you know, he deserves to be understood. And didn't he say? Yeah, I thought so. I remember her saying something. So if anything, Mallory, you're a horrible person because you tried to make him look like something he's not. Like he's a victim. He's not a victim. He's not a victim of me, of diagnosis, of fallout, or any of the people that are going after him. You're a victim of stupidity, though, because you went back to him. Like, talk about not having any, like, self-worth or having any Any like love for yourself where you would let somebody talk about you the way he did, and then you ended up saying, oh yeah, it's okay, I'll go back there. So again, the reason why nobody stuck up for you is because we didn't care to. You're not likable. There are a lot of people that he's continuing to go after, has gone after, and will still probably go after, that are much more likable than you and deserve to be defended. But I'll tell you what, Mallory, I will give you a huge public apology if you can prove by showing a message that you sent to somebody back, 6, 7 months ago when you started sitting with him again. If you could show a message where you said to somebody, hey, I'm going to pretend I like Florida Man and I'm going to go back into his lives, but I'm going to do undercover work and I'm going to reach out to people and be there for them and let them know that I'm a safe place. And it's not that I like Florida Man. I'm doing it for the good of the people. You show some type of correspondence that's dated, and I will apologize to you. Because your story's not flying with anybody. Nobody believes you. But I'll tell you what I'll do. If there is anybody over there, and I think there are people that are afraid of Mike, absolutely. I do believe that. But I will go one step farther. If there is anybody over there that is afraid of Mike and wants to leave him, you reach out to me. Because I can tell you there are probably over 100 people in my life right now that have reached out to me before and said, listen, I'm contacting you, but I don't want you to share this with anybody. And guess what? I haven't done that. So if there is anybody there that is afraid, reach out to me. And I'll tell you exactly what you need to do to not have to be in his lives, to not have to fear him. I will talk to you and I'll tell you what you need to do. And I could get you out of his hair today. ScammyClaws@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on this account or my other backups, Scammy Claws 3, 3.0, and 5. Yeah, that's true. Not out of his hair, out of his bald spot. Good point. Somebody reached out to me today, okay? And I'm not going to say the person's name because I don't say that. But, and I don't want the person to say anything in the live. But you told me something that happened today regarding somebody on that's friends with Mike. And can you just reach out to me and let me know if I can bring up that story today without using names? And I'm just going to keep it at that right now because I don't want to give out too much information. And see, this is the way you do things. You reach out to the person and ask if you can tell a story without just doing it before you get permission. So, I'll, so, who knows about what's going on, what's been happening with a lot of these trashy people on this app. One of them being Spread Love. Now, information has been put out there, and she's put a lot out there regarding what she does for a job, where she works, all that kind of stuff. So lo and behold, somebody that is friendly with me on this app has an account manager that works in the same company that Spread Love works for. And they had a call today, you know, financial stuff, yada, yada, yada. And this person mentioned to her representative what Spread Love was doing. Now, you got to understand, the company that Spread Love works for, or supposedly works for, because I guess she claimed at one point she was laid off, it's a big company. I mean, it's like a company that like our grandparents would have probably bought stock in back in the day. It's a Fortune 500. It's a big one. It's very well respected. And the fact that Spread Love goes into lives during the day, makes posts during the day when she's supposed to be working, and especially at the level that she is doing with her job, it's probably not a good idea to do that. So, this, you know, friend of mine gave this, you know, associate from at the company all of her information, her TikTok pages, and gave a brief description of the bullshit that she does on this app. And he was mortified to think that somebody from the company he works for also does this bullshit. And he got all the information, and he was going to be moving it up the chain. So good luck with that, Spread. Good luck with that. Hope you enjoy it. So, to the main thing today. And I'm going to tell you guys now, this definitely is a trigger warning. Why am I doing what I'm going to do today? You know, I try to... Before I do anything on this app, there has to be a reason why. I mean, you know, I've talked about it multiple times. When I walk away from somebody, I'm not going to talk about it, you know. Do it, as I always say, do it behind the scenes. there's drama on this app that does not need to be discussed on the app. And the times where I have clapped back at somebody is when they've fired the first shot. And continue to do it in some cases. But generally, I do not like to go that way. Generally, I am not a big fan of I could say all the time, I'm not a big fan of putting stuff on my platform that might offend people, might bring back bad memories for them. Personally, with Mike, I mean, he hit the epitome of bullshit today when he tried to do something regarding calling my police department, and it absolutely backfired on him. So we've hit that level now that he's done to me. But, multiple times he's spoken on my father who's passed away. He's shown my father's obituary. He's talked about what my father's career was like. He said, some pretty nasty things regarding me, compared to my dad in terms of career and all that. That's fine. Listen, I've been on this app long enough and I've seen the shitty things that people do. And 99% of the time, I have not stooped to their level. And for those of you that don't know, I think it was early this week or end of last week, he even said on a live that he was going to call the hospice center that my dad was at, that we were so lucky to get him into before he passed away. And, my father was there for 10 days, and they were nothing but a gift from the heavens. But he even went so far as to say he was going to call them. For what reason, I don't know. I mean, if he's going to call and give a donation, that's awesome, because all of these places should be on the top of the list for donating money to. But we all know Mike. That's not what he was going to do. And, if he wants to call a place like that, that's fine. He's read everybody's police reports. He's called people's parents. He's posted pictures of parents that are deceased. He's placed false jackets on people, calling them pedos. Calling them pedos. Calling them pedos. Calling them pedos. A predator. I was getting a phone call. That's why I clicked out. He's done a lot of things on this app. He is definitely a predator of women. Now, that doesn't mean anything other than he goes after women. I'm not saying anything else in terms of the word predator. He focuses on women and he goes after them relentlessly. That is predatory behavior. Nice to see you too. And this is where the trigger warning comes in. Been assaulted by an adult, especially as a minor, this might not be the live for you from this point on. And my heart goes out that have been affected by it, because it is something lifelong that people have to deal with. Remember, Mike always says, believe the victims, right? My heart goes out to those people that have been through that. So again, if that is a trigger for people, then this is not the live for you from this point on. And I do apologize ahead of time for this, because this is a horrible, horrible man I'm about to tell you about. Let me also say, if my live gets taken down, I will be going to Scammy Clause 3. And if that gets taken down, I'll go to Scammy Clause 3.0. I'm not going to use names. I'm not even going to use initials. I know, Ruby. I feel the same way. What I'm reading, and this is public, this is right, you can Google this, okay? Because remember, you know, Mike says if it's public. So anybody can look this up. If you look up State versus Reed 2009, this information is readily available. What I'm reading from is an appeal that Mike's daddy filed after conviction. This is a criminal appeal by Ronald Reed from an order of the Circuit Court of Ohio County sentencing him to imprisonment for not less than 385 nor more than 875 years. Mr. Reed was sentenced to prison after being convicted by a jury on charges involving S-conduct with his daughter and 2 other adolescent girls. Specifically, Mr. Reed was convicted of 31 counts of S abuse by a custodian, 30 counts of S assault in the 3rd degree, 2 counts of S abuse by a parent, 2 counts of incest, and 1 count of S assault in the 1st degree. Mr. Reed assigns error to the trial court's ruling that permitted a videotape deposition to be introduced at trial and to the state's failure to provide criminal and psychological records. And additionally asserts that the evidence was insufficient to support the convictions. Imagine that. After a careful review of the briefs and records submitted on appeal, and having listened to the oral arguments of the parties, we affirm. Are you talking about Mike or his dad? Somebody just said, why isn't he in jail? His father was in jail for life. But Mr. Reed passed away about 12 years ago. So this is the factual and procedural history. And again, folks, this is a major trigger warning. So please, if this is, yes, his sentence was 385, not less than 385, nor more than 875 years. I have never seen, oh no, he served, no, he served, you'll read, I'll read this, okay? I have never heard of anybody getting that much time. And based on all of this stuff, I hope and pray that the victims of Mr. Reed have gotten the help that they need. And anybody that has been through similar circumstances, I hope that people have gotten or are getting the help that they need. So here's the procedural history, the facts of the case. On or about September 5th, 2000, somebody walked into the City of Wheeling Police Department to report that they had been a victim of assault by their father, and reported that a relationship of incestuous conduct began when they lived in Columbus, Ohio, when she was about 4 or 5 years old. The conduct continued when they moved to Wheeling, West Virginia. And the conduct ended when the victim was 15 years old. During the investigation into the allegations, the police received information that Mr. Reed may have also assaulted 2 sisters when they were adolescents. One of them would not implicate Mr. Reed as having assaulted her. However, the other sister did. And I'm kind of reading this, so I don't want to give out anything, okay? It was reported by one of the sisters that in 1997, when she was about 11 years old, Mr. Reed forced her to have relations with him at a Boy Scout camp that Mr. Reed operated in Wheeling, West Virginia. On January 8th, 2001, a grand jury returned an indictment against Mr. Reed. The indictment charged him with 6 felony S offenses involving a daughter and 2 felony S offenses involving one of the 2 sisters. The case against Mr. Reed languished for several years after the first indictment was returned, primarily because of constant changes in defense counsel. During the pendency of the charges against Mr. Reed, 9 attorneys were appointed at various times to represent him. The 8th and 9th attorneys appointed to Mr. Reed represented him during the trial. While the first indictment was pending against Mr. Reed, the other sibling came forward with allegations against him, alleged that Mr. Reed had engaged in S conduct with her over 30 times, beginning when she was about 14 years old. As a result of AP's accusations, a grand jury indicted Mr. Reed again on May 10th, 2024. The second indictment charged Mr. Reed with 6 felony S offenses involving the second, or I should say third person at this point. The 2 indictments were consolidated for trial purposes. Mr. Reed was tried before a jury on July 6, 2005. The state called 18 witnesses during its case in chief. Only 2 of the victims testified. The state relied upon the videotape deposition testimony of the lead detective in the case to establish the charges involving the third victim who did not come forward. At the close of the state's chief in case, the circuit court granted judgment of acquittal to Mr. Reed on 2 of the offenses involving the child. Mr. Reed put on a case in chief. However, he did not testify during the trial. He called 4 witnesses during his case in chief. 3 of the witnesses were his relatives, and the 4th witness was a former neighbor. At the conclusion of all the evidence, the jury returned a verdict convicting Mr. Reed of 31 counts of S abuse by a custodian, 30 counts of S assault in the 3rd degree, 2 counts of S abuse by a parent, 2 counts of enschmest, and 1 count of S assault in the 1st degree. The circuit court thereafter sentenced Mr. Reed to serve consecutive sentences that would result in his imprisonment for a term of not less than 385 nor more than 875 years. Mr. Reed filed post-trial motions for a new trial and judgment of acquittal. Both were denied. Thereafter, Mr. Reed filed this appeal. And of course, there's a list of things that he filed on appeal, and they were all rejected. And I'm not going to read all of them. Again, anybody can go see this information. State versus Reed, 2009, Supreme Court of Appeals of West Virginia. I hope and pray that these kids that were affected by him have gotten the help that they need. Do you need to go outside? And in the appeals, what they do is they will cite, come here, Rubes, let's go outside. They will cite case law as to why his reasons for appeal are not valid. And that's exactly what happened in the case. Come here, Rubes. And this is sad. Don't get me wrong. This is very sad. I mean, in a way, you kind of feel sad. Obviously, for the victims of this. But, you know, you're not human if you don't feel sad for Mike, too. It kind of gives a little bit of insight on why Mike is the way he is. And I was just going to say that, Melissa. But then I think about that there are a lot of people in this world that have been through trauma and have come out on the other side strong, and have come out to be the best person that they can be. And, you know, there are people in here that have said before, you know, that they have been through horrible situations. But because of that, they've become stronger, and they don't mirror the person that they used to be, or they didn't follow in parental footsteps. Oh, I agree. True, but lawyers use the bad upbringing defense all the time to try to get a lighter sentence. Yeah, I agree with that. Generally, it's not successful. You know, and if any of you guys saw MJ's live last night, you know, Mike went after her pretty hard and said and did some terrible things. And, you know, MJ was very open, you know, about herself and how, you know, I'm not getting into details, but how she could have turned out to be a product of her parents. But she was like, F that, you know, F that. I'm not going to be like them. Absolutely mad respect for her. I don't want to be like fucking them. I'm going to do something different in my life. And she did. And she said something last night that she said she was going to look into. She said, and she's been digging into Mike. In the late 90s, early 2000s, West Virginia started to take a much harder stance as far as punishment. I'm glad they did. She said she wanted to know why. There's a lot of questions she has. First of all, she has questions about this elderly gentleman in Florida, God rest his soul, who had a court filing against Mike for money that was stolen from him. But unfortunately, the gentleman passed away before the case ever went to trial, and therefore the case was just ended. And she said, I want to find out what actually happened here. The other thing that she said, and I found this information too. And again, listen, you know, what have we said? What's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? Mike's put out people's information. Michael's put out DV information on people. Mike has called DV domestic violence people who've committed DV on victims and called them. Which is absolutely disgusting. All out of spite. There was a time where the mother of his kid, of Mike's kids, had custody of the kids. And then there was an incident that happened. And then Mike got full custody of the kids. Which terrifies me, by the way. But then the mother got full custody again. And MJ said, I wonder why. Why did she get full custody again after she lost custody of them? So what I did was I did some research. Good girl, boo. Let's get you a treat, Rubes. There are some interesting studies that have been done. Interesting studies that have been done on the propensity of children to follow in the footsteps of parents that do crappy stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that Mike has done this stuff because there's no proof of it anywhere. But this science study is interesting. New study finds significant genetic basis for S offending. Researchers have found that male relatives of convicted S offenders are 5 times more likely to commit a similar act themselves, and that the risk is influenced heavily by their genes. The study, led by Nicholas Langstrom, a professor of psychiatric epidemiology at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden, looked at 21,566 records from men who had been convicted of S offense in Sweden between 1973 and 2009. The team chose to focus only on men since less than 1% of convicted S offenders during the time were women. The analysis revealed that 2.5% of men who were closely related to an S offender, so brothers or sons, ended up being convicted of a similar crime themselves, which is significantly higher than the 0.5% of men in the general population who are at some point convicted of an S offense. Having a father or a brother convicted of S offense increased the odds of being convicted oneself 4 to 5 times compared with the age-matched control men without an S aggressive father or brother. This familial connection, when it comes to S offenders, suggested to the researchers that something, either environmental or genetic or both, was at play. If you want to read this article, if you look up male S offenders and their families, Sweden, this report will come up. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. There's a lot of stuff in this. If you find, like, this was just a synopsis of the article because the findings are, it's a huge, huge study. And I am absolutely not smart enough to understand some of the jargon that they use. So it is an interesting read. Funny how it says read there. An interesting read where if you want to sit down sometime and look at the scientific research yourself. And listen, they'll say in the article that it does not mean 100% that somebody's going to turn out like a family member. They're not saying that it's based completely on genetics. They're not going to say that if you have a parent that has done something like this, you yourself will do it. And I'm not saying that that's the case in this situation. But based on the numbers, based on the scientific research, based on all the data they collected, 2.5% versus 0.5%. You know, it gives me pause as I sit here and I think to myself, all the stuff that Mike has put out, all the false allegations on people, when in fact the majority of the stuff he alleges people have done is him projecting his own life. When you think about all the allegations that he's made to people, he talks about people's criminal records. He talks about people being pedo sympathizers. He talks about just everything. People. My favorite one is calling people out for using rugs. Really? Projection at its finest. And this is where I go into my, my podcast voice. And I do my daily advertisement, of which I don't get anything for, by the way. But talkiatry.com, folks. Talkiatry.com. Go to the website if you're looking for a psychologist or a psychiatrist. You can find somebody in your state close to you that you can have virtual appointments with. Talkiatry does take most insurance. They are wonderful. I can't say enough good things about them. Virtual appointments really took off with COVID and all that. Sarah. I have to say that, you do a quick questionnaire about, what you're going through. And, I knew already because I had been diagnosed with depression and anxiety 16, 17 years ago. So I knew, what my conditions were that I needed, to have therapy and help with. And after you answer the questions and what you're looking for, it'll say, do you want somebody who is male or female? The whole thing. And they will give you choices of somebody that you can connect with. And I've been using their services since the beginning of July. I've actually changed my medication because I didn't feel like the stuff I was on was doing much good anymore. And sometimes that happens when you're on the same thing for a while. And my doctor put me on a different medication that has been fantastic. I speak with my doctor once a month, mainly for medication refills. But I highly, highly suggest it. Because for those of us that aren't real keen on, having to travel, to these appointments, the fact that you can do it right from your own home is fantastic. So I highly recommend anybody that needs somebody to talk to. Obviously, if it's an emergency situation, you can call 988. But if there's somebody that you want to reach out to for something in your life that you're dealing with, please reach out, talkchiatry.com. They're fantastic. And Mike, I suggest the same thing for you.
Hi, Scammy.
Hey, Breeze.
So I wanted to point out a couple things. He's been this way all his life. Like everything we have found, he has been scamming and harassing people all his life. Do we remember, some of y'all may remember when we put out where he got evicted in 2011, and the landlord actually wrote a letter to the court that he was threatening to harm him. He didn't feel safe in his home. He rented a room to him.
Yep.
And that the room he lived in was disgusting. It was filthy. He didn't clean up his trash containers. There was trash everywhere. He was 22 at the time. And he literally said, I don't feel safe in my home. They were ripping stuff off the walls. Like, he's been doing this to people for years. And it's just a pattern in behavior. I've got it pulled up here. It says, I noticed upon walking, his room is in total disastrous condition. There was food containers all over. The room was trashed. He never swept or cleaned. Let's see, Mr. Kinney is 23 years old. He's unemployed. He's always been unemployed. He's taken my kindness for granted, and I am in fear because I also have another tenant who has been served a 30-day notice, and he agreed to leave. But these two are in conspiracy to keep my home in disarray and disrupt my quiet enjoyment. I work every day. When I come home, my house is destroyed. Dishes are dirty. They do not respect my residence. And he was begging the court to get them out because he did not feel safe in his own home. He has been doing this to people for years as an adult.
And as a young adult, because if I remember correctly, I've seen his rap sheet. And if I'm not mistaken, it goes all the way back to, I think he was 17.
Oh, yeah. All his life, he's been a con artist and a scammer and never worked. Always, from what I've heard from somebody I spoke to, always lived in his vehicle. He's always looked down on women, whether it was because he was purchasing them, if you know what I mean, or yep. He's always had a negative view of women. But I wanted to tell everybody, and I have been emailing, and I suggest everybody email. It's feedback_US at TikTok.com. I have been emailing, email them screenshots, anything you have. The more people that email them and bombard them, keep emailing them. If they send you an email response saying, here's our process to report, report the video or whatever, email them back. We've done this. It doesn't work. Here's some screenshots. You can't send video, obviously, but bombard them. That's what I'm doing. Keep emailing them back. Even if you get a generic response saying, here's how you report a video or whatever, that's what they always do. Email back and say, no, this isn't working. It doesn't get him banned. Here's all of his accounts. List the accounts. Send screenshots. Keep emailing them. And that's what I tell everybody to do. If everybody emails them and keeps bombarding them, don't give up. Keep emailing over and over. Eventually something might happen, but you can't take the first email they give you back, the generic response, and say, oh, it didn't work. It didn't work. You have to you can reply to it and keep doing that.
And you know what?
You have to keep sending screenshots, do it.
I was just going to make mention too to what Dish But Can't Take It said. Okay. He was big mad at his accounts were going down last night. Last night, MJ said the best thing to do is report his lives.
Yep.
Just keep reporting his lives. And listen, I am not a big person on reporting a live if they're not doing anything wrong. I'm not. A majority of people, I'm not going to say a majority. There are quite a few people whose lives get taken down for the wrong reasons. Because out of hate, people don't like the person. But when somebody is on here putting out false information, doxing addresses and phone numbers, posting pictures of family members. Last night, I heard him trying to call somebody's relatives. To me, that is report material. Just because you may not like that somebody's putting out the truth is not reason to report somebody. But in his case, all he does on this app is put out hate. Yes, he did call my brother. He puts out hate and he doxes people. He slanders people. That is means for reporting. And you don't even have to be in his live to report him. You can do it from the outside.
Yep. And I don't know who it was. I don't remember. One of those new accounts had posted a video showing all the people that were in there commenting and sending gifts and stuff while he was actively doxing.
Yep.
So I tell everybody to go repost it. I can't remember who it was. If you're in here, let them know. But repost that video because it needs to get out to people that are condoning this behavior. Contradictions. Okay. Repost that video because it needs to get out. The people that were in that live actively condoning it.
Yep. There were people cheering him on last night when he was calling these people and laughing.
Yep. There's contradictions. Fallout has been posting some too, but I'm telling everybody, feedback_US at TikTok.com, and don't take the response they give you because the first response is going to be just a generic, here's how to report a video. Respond back. It doesn't work. We've been doing this. Here's some screenshots. Here's the accounts. Keep emailing them. Bug these shit out of them until they do it.
But I mean, let's be honest, and as MJ said last night, when is this going to stop? How is this going to stop? I'll tell you, it only stops when he's arrested.
Yeah.
That's it. Which is why there are a bunch of us behind the scenes that have been getting tips, have been looking into the tips, have been researching the tips, and eventually he will be caught.
Yep. And that green screen slips every now and then. So if you see one of those, send it to us. If you hear anything that sounds familiar to you, send it to Scammy. I mean, some of it maybe I don't know.
Tips I get on a daily basis from people listening to his lives. And trying to give some type of insight on where they think he is, why they think he is where he is. And everything that we get, we look into.
Yep.
And that's what I told my police department today. And I'll get into that today. And I'll get into that story again about what happened this morning. So for people that came in late. But the only way it ends is by him getting arrested. And I've said it before and I've put it out there and I have it pinned on my videos. If anybody has any information on Michael Kinney, aka Florida Man's whereabouts, please reach out to me. Please reach
There's
out
a
to me.
big reward. I mean,
Yep.
that's a lot of money.